Hey, well, good morning, everyone. Excited for today. Happy Tuesday. This one's gonna be a really good class. It's real estate investing with Hunter Malik. He's been a realtor for 3 years now, but before that, he's had tons of real estate investment experience. He's the co-founder of Legacy Preferred Lending. He's done over 100 flips, around 50 wholesale deals. And yeah, so tons of knowledge, especially with finding good deals and what to do once you find a good deal.
Hey, Cindy, you broke up on me. Okay. I'm just going to start talking. Yeah, so Cindy kind of touched on it, but I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I got involved in real estate investing, man, it must have been almost 5 years ago now. I started a little, uh, I guess, a landscape architecture and design company is what you call it, and ended up scaling that up and selling it in 2021. But I dabbled a little bit in buying some buy and holds before that, but once I sold that, I really went full force into it and started buying one flip, then two flips, then kind of snowballed into doing about four or five at a time. And really just, I mean, fell in love with it. So once I started doing that, I learned a little bit about wholesale and how to leverage hard money. But yeah, so today we're going to touch on what exactly is a deal, because I think that that's really where people get confused is they see a little bit of equity and think that it's going to go well, but in reality, there's a really strict formula that I think is a great thing to follow, kind of the gold standard of real estate investing. So we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on how to find a deal, and how to network with different agents, how to cold call, how to do pretty much anything that generates off market leads, as well as on market leads. There's also a great way to do that. And we're going to talk about how much money you really need to have to get involved in your first deal, and then how to leverage other people's money to do more flips. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started. And also throughout the course of this, it's super informal. If you have questions, feel free to interrupt me at any time. Okay. I'm going to move this real quick. All right, so let's start here. So what is a deal? You're going to hear me over the course of this mention ARV. ARV is an acronym, stands for after renovation value. Okay. This is what the home is going to be worth when it is fully fixed up. When you've done the countertops, new flooring, painting, new roof, whatever the house needs. This is the top of market value for this house. And obviously, y'all are realtors. Y'all know to determine that you're going to pull comps on renovated properties. But here, so the 70% rule is the gold standard real estate investment. You'll see here that the way to determine if it's a 70% deal is you'll take the ARV. So on this example, we use $200,000. You're gonna work with small numbers to make it super simple. So you'll take $200,000 and multiply that times 0.7, 70% of that number. Now, if you take 70% of $200,000, that's going to equal $140,000. Now, right there, you see equity, right? Well, remember, most of properties are distressed, right? So they need just a little bit of work to get them to that top of market value. That's why you're able to get a good deal on them, is they have, tarp on the roof or broken windows, tall grass, messed up driveways, dated house, whatever it may be, right? There's a wide array of issues that we find with these houses. But anyway, the point of that is that you have a little bit of construction that needs to be done. Well, if you buy it for $140,000 and you put $30,000 into it, now you're at 170, then you have closing costs and fees, you can get into some trouble. So the way that we make sure to protect ourselves from that is we take that 70% number of 200,000, which is 140, and then we subtract the cost of construction. So if you're following along here, you have 200,000 times 0.7 equals 140 minus 30, your purchase price will be 110. Does that make sense to everybody? Is there any questions with the 70% rule? Anybody get lost there?
We good.
No. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So that's the 70% rule, and you're gonna move that. I mean, if you have a $350,000 ARV, if you have a $500,000 ARV, if you have a $100,000 ARV, it's the same. It's the same standard across the board. Okay. Now there are, you can buy a good 71% deal. You can buy a good 72% deal. I typically say once you get up to the 80% mark is kind of when you start playing with fire a little bit. You need everything to kind of go right. Because you still have 20% equity there, but you got to remember you have, if you're leveraging hard money, you have those fees. If you're closing at a title office, which we all are, you have those fees. There's insurance. You have a little fees that kind of pick at that 20% equity if you're buying an 80% deal. And then I always say that I've never done a flip where the construction goes exactly the way I thought it would. There's usually something once you get behind the walls or just a surprise project that needs to happen over the course of the flip that takes away from that equity. So that's why I say if it's under 80%, you have a good contracting crew that can get in there, you can probably make some money. But the 70% rule is kind of the gold standard. All right, I'm going to move on. So yeah, so how to find a deal. This is probably the number one question I get asked is, all this sounds great, but how do I actually find these properties? I mean, and really the answer is kind of any way you want to be creative with it. But you also don't have to reinvent the wheel. All of these are things that I've done myself. So yeah, I use for direct mail campaigns. I can give y'all a system. It's called Ballpoint Marketing. I really like that system. What they do is they actually have robots that hand write letters to homeowners. And it's really cool. It looks like a piece of loose leaf paper. It looks like that you hand wrote it yourself, that you were driving by and saw it and decided to put a letter in the mailbox. It's really cool. Typically just say like, I was driving around and saw this house, absolutely love it. I'm really interested in purchasing it. You want to make a deal, you can be creative with it. Online platforms like the MLS. Yeah. So I found many deals on the market. Typically just go to Matrix and put, a certain within 5 miles of Pasadena, and whatever square footage I want. And, I'd go in there and it'll narrow it down to, maybe 500 properties. And I just look for the ones that are lowest price per square foot, and then pull comps on them and throw offers to the agents. And you can get a VA to do this as well. If you give them a list of addresses, they can, go in and write contracts and send it out. So number 3 is wholesalers. Is everybody in here familiar with what wholesalers are? Does anybody know? I can break it down for you guys. Yeah, wholesalers are the people that really do this legwork, the people that go out and find these properties direct to seller. And their job is they'll go in and do the same math we just did, and then throw an offer at the seller for 70% minus construction, maybe 65% minus construction if they're able to work a good deal. And then they'll take that contract that they have equitable interest in the property, right? And they will assign their equitable interest in that property over to an end buyer for a fee. So let's say the ARV is $100,000 and that specific property needs $20,000 in work. 100,000 times 0.7 is 70,000 minus 20,000 is 50,000. Well, let's say this wholesaler goes and locks it up for 40,000, right? And they want to sell it to an investor for a 70% deal. They'll take that contract they have for 40,000 and assign it through an assignment of contract over to the end buyer for 50. And when that property closes, the seller gets 40, the wholesaler gets 10, and then the end buyer gets the property. So these wholesalers, there's plenty of them all over Houston. I wholesale properties myself. I know probably 100 other people that are actively doing deals in wholesaling real estate. So if you go to these networking events, I know Legacy, this right here, this company, we put on networking events all the time. We actually have a really awesome one coming up. I think it's January 29th. It's a realtor to investor event. We have a panel of realtors that are going to be speaking about how they got involved in the investment arena and why they like it. So going to those kind of events and meeting these people is a really good thing, because at least say you get 10 good ones, then 10 of them are sending you one good deal a month, and there's a really awesome opportunity there. So that's another really great way to find deals, is to network with wholesalers. And then number 4 kind of goes into that, is networking with other people. I mean, you get I get a ton of my deals from real estate agents that just have properties they don't want to list on the MLS. So they connect the seller with me, and I tell them where I'm going to be at, what my numbers are, and why my numbers are the way they are. Contractors, I've gotten several deals from contractors that are working on homes for people that maybe an investor that kind of got into some trouble and needs a way out. I'm an awesome way out. Yeah, so just telling anybody and everybody that you're in the arena is a good thing. The more people that know that you buy houses, I mean, everybody knows somebody that has a house to sell. So kind of the same thing with being a realtor, is just make sure everybody knows you're a realtor. Driving for dollars. So this is kind of the cheapest and tried and true way to find deals. It's literally exactly what it sounds like, is you drive around neighborhoods and find homes that have that tarp on the roof, the broken window, the tall grass, whatever it may be that makes the property look distressed, like somebody doesn't want it anymore. And then either knocking on the door or skip tracing the property, which is an awesome skip tracing service that I've always used, is PropStream, PROP Stream. And you type the address in and it spits out a couple phone numbers for, I think it's 11 cents per piece of skip trace data or something like that. And if you need data, I can also help you with that too. Yeah, so you put the address in, call the homeowner, tell them you like the property and you want to buy it. Now you're going to get told to go away in a really nice, to put it really nicely, many times. But it only takes one. It only takes one person to say yes, you know. So that is driving for dollars. Public records, yeah, you can go to your county or your city and ask for a list of pre-foreclosure, probate sales, divorce filings, anything like that. You can also pull lists of those public records on PropStream, or I think Batch Leads is another good one. There's a lot of different systems where you can pull public records. And then, yeah, skip trace those and then start cold calling or get a BA to cold call for you. Those are phenomenal ways to find some leads. Let's see. And then, yeah, bandit signs are amazing. So I've been creative with bandit signs. You know, sometimes they work really well, sometimes they don't work at all. You got to be careful with bandit signs because they are technically, you know, frowned upon with your city. If you get caught, you can get a ticket. But just putting signs out that say, you know, I buy houses and a phone number, and putting them up all over the place. And I've gotten calls from them. I've gotten deals from them. They work. They're not super expensive. But again, you do have to be a little bit careful. I don't want to be on camera saying to put up bandit signs all over the place, but they do work. Oh, and I've also been creative with bandit signs where I'll go into pawn shops. A lot of times, people that are pawning things are your target audience. You're here to help people. You're here to help them get out of bad mortgages or properties they can afford, and you're a fast solution. So I'd go into pawn shops, and a little tip with pawn shops is they only work with customers. So pick up a pocket knife or something cheap, and then mention like, hey, you know, I buy houses in the area. I want to put up a sign in your window or on your counter that says I buy houses with my phone number. And if I ever get a deal from that sign, I'll give you $1,000 or something like that. That's a really cool way to get incoming leads because I've seen it work. It works great. And then cold calling is the same thing as public record. You pull these lists, you skip trace them, you call them, and hopefully you'll get a deal out of it. So let's go to the next one here. Gotta move this back up. Oh, sorry, guys. Is any questions on how to find deals?
What's your personal top 2 ways?
My personal ways is definitely networking. I absolutely adore networking. It's always worked for me. The more people you know, definitely more deals come. I've always enjoyed networking with agents. I think that, you know, agents are kind of the authority figure in the industry. And so when the agent has the trust of the client, a lot of times, and they recommend you, a lot of times the seller's going to trust you just a little bit more out the gate. I think people are skeptical of investors a lot of times because there are some bad apples out there. And so if you can gain the trust of the agent and you have them kind of vouch for your character, a lot of times a deal gets done. That's kind of my favorite way. So if y'all are meeting each other and maybe somebody at the time doesn't have maybe the funds to buy a deal and they want to wholesale, or you get some kind of referral or something like that, agents are phenomenal. And then wholesalers, I buy a lot from wholesalers as well. I really like wholesalers. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties with this slide. There we go. All right. Go to this one. All right, so we kind of touched on this earlier, but we're going to dive a little bit more into it, is the differences and the pros and cons of each of these. Wholesaling is what we talked about earlier. It's the assignment of a contract where you never actually close on the deal, but there is a fee involved. And then flipping is where you actually take on the property, you deal with the contractors, you do the construction and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and move on to that. All right, so wholesaling. We kind of touched on the definition already, but we'll go over it again. It's where you find a deal. You do one of the many things that we talked about earlier, where you go in and check on sellers and bandit signs or whatever, and you get a deal under contract. for, again, let's use that same example, $40,000, and you assign it over to an end buyer for 50. And in the course of that, when the closing happens, you make a $10,000 assignment. One of the major pros with wholesaling is you don't have to deal with contractors. You don't have to actually do the construction. You don't have all the surprises that happen over the course of construction. So you just get the property under contract and assign it over to an end buyer. You wash your hands of it, you get your paycheck, and you move on. That is definitely a big bonus on that. And there's lower risk. I mean, you maybe risk some earnest money. You know, you get the property under contract, you put up $100 earnest money, or if it's on market, you're typically going to put up 1% earnest money. And if you don't find a buyer and you don't have the ability to close on it yourself, you may lose your earnest money. But again, it's really not like a super risky thing to do. You do need to make sure you're doing it all above board, that you're being honest with your sellers. That's one major thing that I would highly recommend. Is a lot of wholesalers are not transparent with their sellers of what they're doing. And I've seen it kind of bite some people in the butt. I think honesty is kind of always the best policy. Just let them know what your intentions are with the property. A lot of times I'll go in on a property and I'll put it under contract, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I might buy it. I might assign it. I might just wholesale it, which is it's kind of the middle. You buy it, don't rehab it, put it on the market and sell it. It's the middle ground between wholesaling and flipping. But, you know, so I'll just tell them, like, look, I don't really know. I know I'm going to close on this one way or another. It's going to close. But I'm still trying to figure it out. You know, my intention typically is to buy it. So I'll go in there and say that. And then if something changes, I'll let them know. But anyway, all right. So yeah, and then the quick profit, right? You know, there's exceptions to every rule, but typically these are a lot faster than a flip property. You put it under contract, then you typically have a 30-day close on it. And then if you have a good buyer, like I know there's several good buyers just in this Zoom right now, that if you can get them under contract, you can close inside of 14 days and make a really nice assignment. I've had one that we're not going to type too much into numbers here, but I had one just to show you what's possible that I put under contract. I think it was for 117,000, and I assigned it for 192,000 like 2 weeks later. And then bam, close, and you get paid. So there's definitely some really awesome opportunities with wholesaling, and I will always recommend doing it, especially as you know, as you start doing more flips. When you take on several of these, you know, you have a lot of hard money notes for the most part, unless you just have a ton of cash you're sitting on. And those get expensive over time. If you're doing 6, 7, 8 deals at a time, and each one of those hard money notes is anywhere from 18 to 2,200 bucks. I mean, it definitely gets pricey. So mixing a wholesale in there to float your hard money notes is something that I always recommend, especially if you have an overflow of deals. And if you really start marketing yourself correctly, you'll have an overflow of deals fairly quickly, or typically inside of 6 months. If you really start letting people know what you're doing, they'll start sending you these properties. And so, yeah, just make sure you get out there and do a couple of wholesale deals. See if I can go to the next slide here. Flipping. All right. So flipping is pretty straightforward, right? It's everybody in here has watched HGTV, so it's pretty simple once you know the formula to it. Let's dive in. So obviously flipping definition is you're going to buy a property, you're going to renovate it, and you're going to resell it for a higher price, right? You can do it with all kinds of things. You can flip cars, you can flip homes, you can flip anything, right? You can flip furniture. So flipping houses is the same thing as all that. You buy it, you rehab it, you sell it. Buy low, sell high. Now, one of the cons of flipping is you do have to actually take ownership of the property. Now, I always say you make your money on the buy. So as long as you're buying it correctly, then you're going to be fine. Buy it for the right price. Make sure you negotiate it. Don't get over eager to get involved in a deal and buy a bad deal. Make sure that you're praying on it. You're waiting and being patient for the right deal. Now, you do have to have a little bit of money to flip houses. It's not, you know, it's not an enormous amount of money. You don't have to go and buy these properties cash, and we'll touch on that later. But you do have to have a little bit of money, so you will invest a little bit of capital in these properties, so you'll have that money out for a little bit of time. But the profit potential is, you know, it's enormous. I mean, you can make quite a bit of money flipping houses if you do buy it correctly. But you do run the risk of a loss. So just make sure you have that in mind when you're getting involved in a deal. And then timeline, yeah, you can do it in about 4 to 6 months. Is what I've seen. I have several that have been 60 to 90 days close to close. If you have the right team of contractors getting in and out of there, that's awesome. And then, you know, if you run into some issues or whatever, it may take 6 months. Typically, it doesn't go longer than that unless you theoretically buy a bad deal and start having some trouble getting through it. But yeah, so flipping, we're going to go over the formula again real quick just to make sure it really hammers home because this is the formula that really changed my life. Flipping, as long as your say ARV is 200 times 0.7, 140, the property needs $30,000. You subtract 30,000 from 140, you buy it at 110. If you're doing that, you can make a lot of money flipping houses. And it's the reason I've been doing it for so long because I really, really love the process. And it's really cool seeing the properties come to life. You know, you buy a house that I had one that it drywall was completely beat up. People have been punching holes in the wall. There was human feces on the floor. It was awful. It was a horrible house. But we went in there and in I think 60 days, it had potential. It was brick and slab foundation. We went in there and ripped out everything, completely redid everything, and it's cool watching the property come into a home for something that was so neglected. Watching it come into a home for somebody, you can really fall in love with that process. Does anybody have any questions on flipping? No. All right. So this is my personal favorite part because I'm involved in hard money. So yeah, how to leverage hard money. This is one of the coolest tools I think that's really been introduced into the lending space. So this is a short-term asset-based loan. Okay. So we went over the 70% rule many, many times over the course of this. The reason I touch on the 70% rule so hard is because that's what allows investors to keep their money secure and protected and in the pocket for the majority of the deal. And if you buy below that, I mean, it's even better. You're out of pocket next to nothing over the course of it. And this is why. The asset-based loan, when we underwrite as your lender, when we underwrite a deal, we're going to do the exact same formula. So let's say the ARV is $200,000. We're going to multiply that times 0.7, which equals 140. And that is what we're going to lend you. We're going to lend you $140,000 for this deal. Now, every house, for the most part, in this needs a rehab, right? So let's say you're buying it for 110 and it needs $30,000 in renovations. Well, if you're closing on the property for 110 and we're giving you 140,000, a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I'm going to make 30,000 up front. That's not exactly what we're going to do. We're going to hold back $30,000 of that loan to ensure that we get the rehab completed, right? So, and we'll advance you the 110. So if you're buying it for 110 and we're giving you 110, what are you out of pocket? Nothing, right? Now, that sounds better than it is. You still have points, you still have fees, you still have title stuff, but you're not bringing anything for the property itself. So you can close on. I think we had somebody close on a house last week. I think they brought like $6,000 to close, and so they didn't bring anything at all. And they've got the entire purchase price covered. All of that was title fees, points, and insurance. So now, and you still have 30,000 of that loan to play with. So let's say that you want to do the roof and it costs you 10,000 bucks. You're going to do the roof, you're going to front it with your own capital, and then you're going to call me and say, hey, Hunter, I just finished the roof. It cost me 10,000 bucks, and we're going to release 10,000 bucks of that holdback. Now you have 20 in holdbacks and you have a new roof. Yeah, you do the floors and paint, cost 10,000 bucks. Hey, Hunter, I did the floors and paint, cost 10,000 bucks. And we'll release that to you. And now you have 10,000 holdbacks and so on and so forth. And then when the property's done and listed on the MLS, you bought it for 110, you spent 30, we gave you 110, we gave you 30. So now you're out of pocket, nothing but fees and holding costs, and you have a completely renovated house that's worth 200,000 and you're in it for 140. So that's why hard money is so cool, I think, because I mean, if you have a little bit of money, which we always say to have a third of the rehab budget, 6 months of interest payments, and your closing costs. If you have that, you can flip a house. So yeah, if you have, let's say $30,000 to do a deal, let's say you have 120 and you want to buy 4 deals. Let's do it. Let's buy 4 deals and we'll give you the money to do it. And now you can really start creating a future for you and your family as you're doing 4 flips at a time. And the net on each one of those is $45,000, $50,000. And you're turning those out every 4 months. I mean, the upside is enormous. And with hard money, the coolest thing about that is, a lot of times these are distress situations that need to close really quickly. And hard money, you can get really fast closings, which is amazing. We've closed a deal in 48 hours before. We've closed a deal in 4 months before. It took time because of a probate. So we're really kind of any hard money lender is really going to be playing off your time. There's not a lot of requirements. There's no credit checks or anything like that. We just pull background to make sure you have a little bit of money. And really, it's based off the deal. If you have a good deal, then we'll give you the money. One of our slogans is we won't lend on a deal we wouldn't buy ourselves. And since, Jeff Whitespear, I'm assuming all y'all know who that is. He's the co-owner of Legacy. He and I started it together along with Will Schulze. We've all done a lot of flips. We're kind of say we're more of a partner than a lender. Since we have done so many, we have a lot of experience with it. We can maybe catch some things that you might not, being a novice investor. We can give you some advice over the course of the rehab, and we'll give you, we'll just help you out through the process. And it's short term, so each of these terms are 6 months with 2 built-in extensions if you need to go a year. As long as you're buying the deal correctly and you have a good contractor, you're not going to go past that 6 months. But if you do, there's an extension fee and then another one at 9 months. But typically, I'd say that if you're doing it correctly, you have a good crew, you're in and out of it in 6 months at the latest. And we're flexible, so we're flexible with terms and getting you guys really going. So yeah, I mean, hard money is an awesome tool that I highly recommend y'all utilize. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, this kind of just goes over it again. Is we're going to lend you 70% minus construction, and then we're going to give you the construction and keep you out of pocket as little as possible, and it'll allow you to continue to scale. Yeah, so we're going to open it up for questions now. And if y'all have anything for me, I'm here to answer questions for the next 30 minutes if y'all need me. And also, I wanted to give all of y'all my contact information. I don't have a slide for it. I was going to give y'all my phone number. Y'all all feel free to text me if y'all need help with anything or if y'all want some, help getting going. So if y'all are all ready, I'll give you my phone number. 713-503-2583. And if y'all weren't ready for that, there's a recording of this. Y'all can go get it later. But yeah, y'all shoot me a text if y'all need any help at all. But yeah, we're going to open it up for questions now. Let's see. Chat. Sydney gave my number. Also perfect. Yeah, so with the lending, we always follow the 70% rule. There's some flexibility there, depending on the deal in the area. But typically we'll lend 70%. Even if you're buying an 80% deal, for example, the way that's going to work is we're still going to lend 70% and we're still going to hold back the entirety of the construction costs. So let's do this example, right? So let's say the ARV is $100,000. We're going to lend you 70, right? And let's say this home still needs $20,000 in repairs, right? We're going to lend you 70, we're going to hold back 20, so we're going to advance you 50 at close. Well, let's say you're buying this house for $60,000. You can still make money doing that, right? But you're going to bring $10,000 since we're only advancing 50. Does that make sense? You're going to have $10,000 there that you bring to closing along with your points and fees and stuff. You're just not going to be out of pocket zero. You can still make a lot of money buying 73, 74, 75% deals, but you're just going to bring that 3, 4, 5% up front, and then you're still going to have all your construction holdbacks there. Does that make sense? I buy a lot of deals that are 72, 73, 74%. The home runs are the 70% deals. But you just have to be prepared to put, 3% down, 4% down. Now, again, depending on the area, we can have a conversation about maybe lending 71, 72% LTV, loan to value. But most of the time it's going to be 70%, especially as a new borrower. We're going to get to know you. We're going to go through the process of a deal. And then as we start doing more and more together, we can work on that. What about tax sales or auctions? Yeah, so auctions are great. Now, to buy a deal at auction, you need to have cash. I know many people that have built their business off of buying at auctions, but you do need to have cash to do that. You can't really. I mean, you could theoretically go and buy it cash, and then you can refinance out into a hard money loan to get you back liquid again. So I mean, yeah, I mean, if you have the ability to go to these auctions on Tuesdays and throw down, 120 grand for a house and you get a smoking deal on it, why not? Absolutely. Go nuts. Any more questions?
Do you typically bring your contractor whenever you go and look at properties, or how do you scope out how much the work's going to be?
Absolutely. So I actually have a sheet that I can provide you with, Sydney. I don't have it on me, but I'll give you all a little bit square foot, quick. I always say the stick job, which is basically fresh paint or something like that. You go in and maybe new carpets, just something really simple to spruce the home up and quick sale. It's typically going to be anywhere between $10 to $15 a square foot. You might get up to $20 a square foot if it's a smaller square footage, just because people, they want to make money in smaller house. They're going to jack up the price per square foot just a little bit. Yeah, I'd say 10 to 20 bucks a square foot for a lipstick job. Now a cosmetic property, it needs, it needs new bathrooms, kitchen, floors, paint, just basically make the house look better. But the components of the home, the roof, the foundation, the electrical, the plumbing, the foundation, all of those are okay. You just want to make the house look better. Typically that's going to cost you $25 to $40 a square foot, depending on, let's say you maybe need a new roof, but the other components are fine of the big five. The big five, again, roof, foundation, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. Those are the big five. Yeah, so I'd say 25 to 40 bucks a square foot. And then if it's a full gut, I mean, it can be anywhere. Like, let's say all the big five need to be done. You're going to maybe work on a little bit of framing. You can spend anywhere from $45 to $75 a square foot, maybe even higher. If you're going to get above 75, 80 bucks a square foot, you're probably looking at a tear down in a new build and probably just move on from that property. You don't want to take on more than you can handle, especially early in your investing career. I made that mistake. I think on my 7th flip or something like that, I spent 120 on the construction, and spoiler alert, I lost money on that deal. So I would just be careful. But yeah, to answer your question, I do bring contractors. Now that I've been doing it a little while, a lot of times I can go in and run quick numbers, but especially early on in your investment career, I highly recommend get you a contractor you trust. You can find contractors I drove for dollars for contractors where I just drive around in areas that I know there's going to be flips going on. And the cool thing about that is you can walk into a property and they're working and you can see the quality of their work right there. You can, if the house is looking poor, you can just walk right out of the house and you don't need to get their number. But if it's looking good, get their number, give them a call, and have them come give you a couple bids. And that's a great way to get contractors. Also, new build sites are great to find crews if you want to GC it yourself. GC means general contracting, which is you basically get all the trades and you do it yourself. But I recommend hiring a general contractor, which most of these flips are going to have general contractors working on them. So when you walk in, you can get their boss's number, is what they say. Yeah, so I highly recommend walking a house with a contractor when you're getting going. Any other questions?
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much, Hunter. We all really appreciate it. Everyone, you have his number in case you do have any follow-up questions or want to learn more about hard money. Again, we do this every Tuesday at 10 a.m. So be sure to tune in next week for our training. I know Jeff and Amanda are going to be doing some business planning, so definitely come check that out. But yeah, thank you so much again, Hunter. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, had a great time. Thank you all. Reach out to me if you need anything.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.